Hey there, developers. In the vast landscape of Web3, choosing the right blockchain can feel like navigating a maze. With so many options out there, each boasting its own unique features, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Shakespeare did say that all that glitters is not gold, and this does stand true for many of the blockchains out there. Today, we're cutting through all the noise and shining spotlight on one standard contender, which is the Sui blockchain. I'm Boni from Metaschool, and we're going to be taking a deep dive into the Sui blockchain. Not only that, we'll also be learning how to craft our very first smart contract in Sui. If you find value in this video and appreciate what we're doing, hitting the subscribe button is like mining a valuable block of support for our channel. So let's dive in together and turn learning about Sui into an exhilarating adventure. Let's just quickly address why are we going with Sui in particular. Sui is a layer 1 blockchain, meaning it's entirely self-reliant. It can handle its own consensus, execution, and security. But what's the catch here? There are a bunch of other layer 1 solutions out there that does the same. Sui shines when you want to build latency sensitive applications such as gaming and fast retail payments. Latency sensitive means that things that cannot wait or need to happen really quickly. If you're playing a game and you press a button to jump, you expect the game to respond instantly. In a world of fast internet and instant messages, we all like things to go in and happen without any waiting, and that's what it means to be latency sensitive. After a number of testnet iterations in 2022, Sui's mainnet was launched on May 3rd, 2023 and has around 627 million USD of total value logged to the day of recording this video. The Sui blockchain is built using Rust and supports smart contracts written in the Sui Move programming language, which is a modified version of Move, and Move being a platform agnostic programming language, which again is based on Rust. Move is a safer and more expressive option as compared to Solidity and other common blockchain programming languages. And one of the main advantages of this is that smart contract exploits like duplication, double spending, and destruction is prevented by the way Move is designed. Its data model on how assets are owned is also quite unique. Sui is an asset or object based rather than contract based, right? Keep this in mind because it will come in handy later. Also, they did introduce the concept of owned assets along with regular shared assets. And if I'm going to go in and keep talking about Sui, this is going to be a pretty long video. So if you want to go in and learn more on about everything about Sui, its concepts, its protocols, you can check out our free course at Metaschool. I'll be dropping the link in the description down below. In case you guys want to follow along with me in building your very first smart contract in Sui, you can access our free course on Build on Move on Sui and explore its application here at Metaschool. Again, I'll be dropping down the links for the same in the descriptions down below. You'll be getting the complete documentation as well as code snippets to help you along the way. Now, also as a cherry on top, you will be also getting a bunch of XP that can help you to unlock more opportunities here at the Metaschool platform. And alongside of that, you will be also getting your own special NFTs directly to your wallet from Metaschool. Now here, you can see there are a bunch of NFTs that you can go in and claim once you go in and complete down the entire course. Okay, now without wasting in any more time, in order to start writing up our code, we will have to go in and set up our development environment first and foremost. There are going to be some key ingredients that we'll be needing. Mainly, it's going to be Rust, CMake, and curl for setting up our Move project. Right? So depending on which operating system you are on, you can install the prerequisites accordingly. If you're on Mac, Linux, or even on Windows, the entire process is documented down over here. In my case, even though I am on Windows machine right now, I will be using the Windows subsystem for Linux because it kind of makes it easier for me to install dependencies and whatnot. All right. So if you want to go in and do the same, like use the Windows subsystem for Linux, it's quite easy to set up, right? So the idea here is that you'll be running Linux inside of Windows. Okay, so in order to do this, you don't need to do much. It's just a single command away. So what you can do is you can go in and open up your terminal as admin, right? So you can just press Windows X, and then once the pop-up opens, you just go in and put A, right? Just click A and it will give you a prompt for going in and opening a terminal as admin. Let me bring it in here. There you go. And the only thing that you want to do at this point to install WSL for Linux, which is for Windows, right? Windows subsystem for Linux. The only thing you're going to go in and need is a single command, which will be WSL-install. All right. This is the only command that you're going to need. I've already installed the Windows subsystem for Linux in my system, so there's no point in me doing this again. But what this particular command will go in and do is that it will go in and install the Ubuntu subsystem. You can specify other distros as well, but by default we get the Ubuntu subsystem, and it has a really good community support in terms of maintaining all the libraries. All right, so we're going to be going in with that. A single command is all you're going to need, and this will install the Ubuntu subsystem within your Windows. All right, now once that is done, it's a process which might take a bit of time, right? 10 to 15 minutes or so, depending on your system. You will have to go in and reboot your system, and for the very first time, okay, when you open the WSL app, you'll be getting a WSL app in your Windows drawer. Please make it so that you're opening it as admin, because there's an initialization that needs to go on, and you'll have to give it admin privileges. Okay, so once that is set up, we can just go in and start installing up our dependencies. Now, just to go in and show this, I'm going to run this command, which is WSL-list, to show you that I already have the Ubuntu subsystem installed in my Windows machine. Now, in order to go in and access the subsystem, you just need to open your terminal and run the command, which is WSL. And in a few seconds or so, it will go in and get us access into the subsystem. There you go. So currently we are in this particular directory, which is the mount users bones, which is my username. In your case, whatever username that you'll have, it's the same name will go in and reflect here as well. Now, let's just quickly install all the dependencies that we're going to go in and need. So there's a bunch of dependencies that we'll be installing, but the rule of thumb when you're working with Linux is that you always update your system before you do anything, right? So the very first command we have is sudo apt get update. apt is the local package manager for Ubuntu based systems. So we're just going to go in and click sudo apt get update. The code is again down here. I'm going to paste it down in my terminal and click enter. It's going to ask you for your password. This is the same password you'll be setting during the very first initialization, right? So as I said before, when you install WSL for Linux, you'll have to reboot your system. And for the very first time, when you go in and you open the app as admin, you'll be setting this up. The initialization will happen then and then there itself. So you'll be setting down your username and your password as well, which I've already set up over here. So let me enter my password. There you go. It's going to quickly check through all the repos on if there is any updates that are needed. In my case, it's already updated, so that's not needed. And now we're going to need a curl over here. So let's just go in and install curl as well as git, right? So what I'd rather do is I'll install both of them side by side. So if you want to install multiple packages, you can just list them side by side here. So I'm going to say curl and git all, and both of them will be installed in directly. So let me just go in and press the same. In my case, it's already updated, so that need not be done. Now, once you're done with this, there are going to be a bunch of other libraries that you'll be requiring, like CMake, GCC, the external libraries like libssl-dev, and clang as well. Like, there's a bunch of dependencies and libraries that we need to install. So instead of installing them one at a time, what I'd suggest is that I'll drop this particular command in the comment section down below. I'll pin it down somewhere. So this particular command that I'm going to be using will go in and install all of the dependencies and libraries in a single go. It's the same thing, like whatever list of repositories, what a list of libraries that we have over here. I'm just installing all of them in a single go. That's what's happening here, right? So I'm just going to go in and click enter. There you go. In my case, all of this is already installed, so it just didn't take in any time. In your case as well, it will take in a few minutes and you will be good to go depending on your internet speed and your system. Okay, so we've taken care of all the prerequisites for our installation of Rust and the move for building our very first smart contract. So now the next thing that we're going to go in and do is install Cargo and Rust over here. Now the thing here is Cargo is basically the build system used for Rust. It's also the package manager that we're going to be needing for downloading a bunch of libraries so that we can go in and run our code. Okay, so you can just directly copy this particular code over here. And I do warn you that this might take up a bit more time, again, depending on your internet speed, because it will be fetching a bunch of repositories and libraries from the network that it's supposed to interact with, and it will take in a bunch of time. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and drop in this particular command. This will be installing Rust and Cargo within our subsystem. So I'm going to just go in and run this particular command. There we go. I dare remind you that this might go in and take up a substantial amount of time. So when you go in and you put in this command, you'll be asked to go in and give one of these three options. You can just go with the standard installation. So I'm just going to go in and press enter, and there you go. So in my case, Rust is already installed, so it did not take in any more time over here. Now we can go in and finally set up Sui in our Windows subsystem for Linux. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to be installing some Sui binaries from the devnet as well. So let's just quickly go in. There you go. So we're going to be using the Cargo that we've already installed by the previous command that we had given. If you just want to go in and double check everything, you can just go in and write rust up hyphen version. Right, so it will go in and show you the version of the Rust up. So this is basically the toolchain manager that we are using. So this will go in and give you the version of that, just so that you can check if everything is working correctly to the point or not. Now, once this is done, we are going to go in and install Sui. So for this, there is a really simple command here. We're going to go for cargo install the entire thing. Let's just copy this, bring up our command prompt again, paste in our command and press enter. Again, this process will again take in a bunch of time depending on your internet speed. In my case, as it's already installed and updated, there is no need for me to go in and do so. All right, so we finally have Sui installed within our subsystem, right? So everything is pretty much set in for the development part. Now we can actually go in and start writing up our code. But just to be on the safer side, let's quickly just check the version of Sui that we've installed within our subsystems. There you go. So in my case, it's Sui 1.21.0 hyphen, and you can see the whole thing, right? So you can even go in and check the version of Sui that you currently have installed in your system, just so that you can be completely sure that you've done everything correctly to this very point. All right, so now we are finally at a point where we can start writing our very first smart contract. Okay, so in order to go in and write up our code, we will be requiring an IDE. Now, in order to set this up, this can be done quite easily. Okay, so there's a prerequisite for it. So what you're going to do is, I'm pretty sure that most of you already have VS Code installed within your system. So you can just go in and open your VS Code, click on extensions. And there's a particular extension which I would want you people to install, because it will make the process quite easier, because we'll be working inside of the Windows subsystem, right? So the name of the extension is called WSL. It's by Microsoft themselves, and it's quite simple. What it does, it basically allows you to open any folder in the Windows subsystem for Linux, right? But VS Code is going to be the one that you're running native on Windows. So all you need to do is just go in and get this extension installed, and you are all set. Once this extension has been installed, you can close your VS Code, come down to your terminal over here. You can notice I'm still on the Windows subsystem for Linux, and you just need to go in and write code space dot. So this will go in and open VS Code within the subsystem, but technically the idea is our VS Code is running on Windows, but that VS Code will be able to access the files in our subsystem, right? So that's kind of what the extension was for. So I'm going to write code dot, and in the very next second, as you can see, I am currently inside of my Windows subsystem for Linux, And my VS Code is, again, you can check the terminal as well, is now currently running on Bash. Okay. All right. So let's just quickly create up a new folder. I'm going to call it first contract. You can name it anything as you want. I'm going to create up a new folder and let's just quickly open it. So I'm going to do Control K, and without leaving the control, let's press on O. This again is just opening the folder. It's nothing much. It's just a keyboard shortcut. Okay. So let's look for that folder, which is inside of Bones. I have a folder called first contract. Let's click on OK, and now we are within that particular folder. So this is the part where we can go in and actually start, setting up our Move project and writing down the code that is going to be required for us to go in and write up our very first smart contract. Okay, so now that I'm inside of a folder, the very first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to open up my terminal here. Let me zoom it up by a bit. There we go. And the very first thing that we'll have to do is to go in and create a workspace environment. Okay, so the command that we're going to be needing will be Sui move new, and then you can go in and follow it up with the name of your workspace. You can give it any name whatsoever that you want. I'm gonna call it, as it's our very first smart contract, it kind of makes sense that we should call it hello world, right? Because it's technically the first code that you write in any programming language. Okay, so this is going to be the name of a workspace. You can give any name whatsoever that you want, but do bear that in mind that the same name comes in handy later as well. Okay, so I'm giving the name as hello world, and I'm going to just click on enter, and in a minute's notice, if I just open up this particular folder, let's just go in and see. So oh yeah, there you go. So the folder goes in and shows up. It just took a second or two. So you can see a new folder got created with the same name as that we had given for our workspace here. And within this particular folder, we'll have two things. We'll have a folder called as sources, which is currently empty. And then we'll have our move.toml file. All right. So toml basically stands for Tom's Obvious Minimal Language. And much like the name suggests, it's easy to read language that you can go in and use for configuration, for writing up your configuration file. And there's a bunch of other unique features as well that you can explore on your own. But for the time being though, if you take a look at this particular file, it basically consists of 3 sections altogether. The first section is the package section, where it will contain the name of the name and the version of your new package. Then we have the dependencies. Basically, this will represent all of the packages our Move package will depend on. By default, there is only the Sui framework, which is mentioned out over here. But as you build more complex smart contracts with a lot of moving parts, there will be a bunch of other dependencies coming in. Then you'll have the addresses section. Here, you can basically go in and give aliases, like a second name to certain addresses that you would want to go in and use within your smart code. Okay, your smart contract code. So the thing here is that as we're building a really simple smart contract, we need not play around with this. But if you're building something, building a smart contract with a bunch of moving parts all together and dependencies, you'll be visiting this particular file quite often. All right. So now we can actually go in and start off with writing out our smart contract, right? So I'm going to directly head back into the Metaschool platform over here. Now that we're done with setting up our development environment, I'm going to go into deploy your first Sui contract here. We've already set up our workspace. Now what we want to do is to create a new file called as hello.move, and this is going to be the smart contract that we are going to be deploying. So I'm going to copy this up, jump back into my VS Code over here, create a new file in sources. Let's call it hello.move. All right, and I'm going to paste in the smart contract code. There you go. Okay, now one of the things I can suggest is that you can install this particular VS Code extension called the Sui Move Analyzer. This kind of goes in and acts as a language server and basic grammar, like you get syntax highlighting and stuff, makes the code a bit more easier to read. And here we have the code for our smart contract. And pretty much like every other contract, we have some standard things like the copyright and the license identifier. There's a small comment here saying that this is the basic hello world example for Sui Move. It's taken directly from the GitHub repo. I'm going to just remove it. Now, looking at the overall code, the one of the things you'll notice here is all of the code is basically encapsulated or put inside of a module. Creating a module is quite simple. So all of the code that or whatever operations or functionality that we want our smart contract to have, we'll be defining it within this module, right? So I'm creating a module called as hello world. Now you'll notice that there are two hello worlds over here. The first one is the package name, and the second one is the name of my module over here, right? So we have it inside our workspace called as hello world. So that's specified in first. Then we have the delimiter, and then we have our module name. Now, after that, inside of this, we have a bunch of standard libraries that we're going to be going in and using here. We have the standard string library for string handling because we want some strings. Basically, hello world is a string, so we're going to be needing that. We have the Sui specific object modules, which basically are going to help us to basically work around with objects, because if you remember earlier we did discuss that in Sui, the data model is also quite unique because it follows an object-based model rather than a contract-based one. And then we have the transfer module, which is what we're going to be using to go in and transfer objects from one entity to another. And then we have the transaction context, which will help us to go in and get more information about the transaction, like the sender's address and whatnot. Okay, so we're going to be needing this. So the idea here is we're going to be creating an asset called as hello world object. So this is going to be the asset that we'll be creating. And the way you go in and you do this, the way you actually create the object, because assets are object based, is by using the struct keyword. The struct keyword basically allows you to go in and create a struct, basically allowing you to store two information within that object here for the time being, which is going to be the ID and a particular text. Okay, now we are also going in and giving it two abilities over here, one of which is key, and then we have store. There are furthermore that you can go in and explore once you start writing complex contracts. You have copy, and then there's a bunch of other functionality that you'll be able to go in and give to a particular object. So for the time being, we've just gone and went in and specified that okay, this particular object is going to have a key, which is kind of necessary for all objects in Sui. You'll go in and you'll see this more quite often once you write a few more contracts. Next up, what we have is we have our mint function here, and it basically does two things. It first and foremost creates an asset, an object here, by using the struct that we've already specified it. We are assigning the value to the ID as well as that of the text. These are the two properties which we've already specified within our hello world object struct. We are assigning the ID by using the transaction context that we have already imported in before. So the transaction context is basically going to have some information regarding the transaction. So you'll have information about the sender's address and a bunch of other things in here. So we're going to be using that as the ID, and we're also setting the text to that of hello world. And right after that, what we're doing is we're using the public transfer function from the transfer module, which we've already imported out before, so as to send the asset to us, right? So we are setting the saying that, okay, you send this object to this particular address, and the address that you specified is of the sender, which is going to be us, right? So this basically brings us to the entire completion of our smart contract. This is it. It's a pretty small code altogether. The next step would be to basically go in and build our move file. So all you want to go in and do is to open up your terminal, and you can run this command, which is sui move build. I'm going to copy this, jump back into VS Code. And before we run the build command, what I'm going to do quickly is that we need to be within the directory of our workspace. So we'll just do cd hello world, because that's the name of our workspace. There we go. And we can run up this particular command. Once you do so, it's going to take a few seconds, and it would have done building the entire smart contract. There we go. And if I just quickly do a refresh, you can see we have the build folder currently generated out within our workspace. Okay, now moving forward, we are almost done with building our smart contract. Or there you go, your project directory will include a build folder and a move.log file, which is nice. Now, what we want to do is we want to go in and create our own Sui account. Okay, so now what we're going to do here is we're going to run this particular command here, which is Sui client new address, and this ed25519 is the key scheme. Okay, so this is the command that we want to go in and copy. I'm going to jump back into VS Code back here. Let's paste up this command over here, press enter. And I would say that you need to go in and store it up somewhere, because this is going to be the address for you in the DevNet. All right. So the key scheme is what we had specified, which is 25519 ED25519, and this is going to be the address that we'll have within the Sui DevNet. Okay. Now moving on forward, what we're going to do is that once we have okay, so we are again specifying that, okay, the recovery space, the recovery phrase that we have, let me just go and show you this one. It's going to be quite important because later ahead, if you want to go in and set up your own Sui wallet, you'll be needing this to basically get access to your Sui wallet. All right. So there you go. So please do go in and note it down somewhere safe. All right. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and switch our address. So basically what we want to do is we're going to run this particular command, which is Sui client switch and hyphen address, and then we'll put in our address over there. Let's jump back into VS Code. I'm going to paste this here. And let me copy the address that we got from the previous command that we had ran. And I'm going to paste it over here. Let's press enter. And it would go in and say that the active address has been switched to the address that we have provided it with. Now, before we go in and deploy our smart contract on the Sui DevNet, we're going to be needing some fake coins, all right? Because we're not putting it out in the mainnet, we're doing it on the DevNet. So we're going to go to you. There are several options for you to go in and get these fake tokens. So there's multiple options that you can go in and basically discover. There's the Sui DevNet Faucet Discord channel, which is something that you can use. There is also another thing that we can do, which is that we can go in and do it using the CLI as well. So we're going to be using this particular command called Sui client faucet. And this, let's just go into a terminal here. I'm going to say Sui client faucet. There you go. It's going to take a few seconds, and there you go. So you can say that request is successful. We are doing the same thing, but we are requesting fake tokens for us to work on the DevNet, right? So it goes in and says request successful. It can take up to 1 minute to get the coin. Run Sui client gas to check your gas coins. Okay, let's just quickly go in and do so. So I'm going to say Sui client gas. When I go in and run this, it's going to take a few seconds, and there you go. So you can see the particular address. So this is the gas coin ID, and you can see how much balance I have. I have 10 Sui tokens as my balance for the time being, and this is something that we're going to need so that we can deploy our smart contract onto the DevNet. All right. So let's move in back here again. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be setting a new alias. Okay. So now the alias thing is quite straightforward. So this is basically the RPC for our DevNet. So let's just copy this. We're creating a new environment here. Let's just come back here and run both of the commands simultaneously. So environment config with name DevNet already exists. Active environment switch to DevNet. Okay, so this is pretty good. Okay, so we are on path of it. Now the very last thing to go in and do will be to publish our smart contract. So the command for this, as you can see, is Sui client publish and then gas budget, and then we need to set the path. Okay, so this would be quite straightforward. There isn't much that we need to do. I'm going to paste the command here, and then we need to give the path to our move file. All right, so I'm going to just remove this. I'm going to go into my hello.move, right click on it, and I can just copy the path and paste it down over here. And I'm going to just quickly press enter, and this should go in and start publishing our smart contract onto the DevNet. It's going to take a few minutes, and once it's done, you're going to get a bunch of information, but altogether, the only piece of information we're going to need for the time being will be the transaction digest. You'll have to scroll a bit on the upper side, and this is the transaction digest that we're going to be requiring. So I'll just quickly go in and take you to suiscan.xyz. This is one of the places where you can go in and search anything on Sui. I'm going to paste the transaction digest that we got, and there you go. Our transaction person shows up. And in a minute's notice, there you go. So you can see the overview of our smart contract here. It's a success. The total gas fee, gas budget, and a bunch of things. And the sender is also specified over here. You can check whether this is the same address as that you had used to publish this. And there you go. Our smart contract is live and kicking in the Sui DevNet. So that's it for today, guys. We've just navigated the whole process of creating a smart contract in the Sui blockchain. I hope this has sparked your interest in demystifying some aspects of Sui for you. And if you enjoyed this video and learned something new, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It really supports the channel. I'm Boni from Metaschool, and I can't wait to share more blockchain adventures with you. Stay curious, keep exploring, and we are all gonna make it.